Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to Raising Conscious Kids Radio. I'm delighted that you joined us, and I'm delighted for our guest here today, David Brown Jr. I just want to tell you a bit in case you're new to Raising Conscious Kids. We're just all about raising happy, healthy, conscious kids and creating successful families. Today's guest was introduced to me by Jeannie Murphy. So thank you, Jeannie. And we're so delighted to have you in studio today, all the way from Pennsylvania. And I just want to just so everybody knows, if you haven't joined our free community, global network of parents and teachers, go to raisingconsciouskids.com and you can join us there. So let's get started. I'm going to tell you about David Brown Jr. He's a former senior leader in financial services. He earned a degree in finance at University of Delaware and an executive MBA at Villanova. Go Wildcats! And continues studying organizational leadership. David is also part of the adjunct faculty at Villanova University, where he teaches MBA students who partner with local Philadelphia social enterprises how to lead semester-long consulting engagements using a systems thinking approach to solving business problems. As a transformation coach, David works with clients to identify and improve areas that are preventing them from having an optimal life experience. He has a high desire to encourage others to awaken to their passions and begin to lead more purposeful lives. Amen to that. Sharing his personal story of being separated from his daughter and how that trauma awakened his heart to loving kindness and compassion has further fueled his desire to help others. David is also a certified Reiki Master practitioner. So welcome to Raising Conscious Kids Radio, David Brown Jr.
Thank you so much for having me, Kim.
Oh, what a delight. So I just want to just jump in because you have such a powerful story. And so I just want to turn it over to you. And, we talked via phone recently, and now it's a pleasure to meet you in person. And you have such a powerful story, so take it away.
Sure, thank you. So going into 2012, my life, I felt like it was coming to this meaningful purpose, especially professionally. You know, I graduated from Villanova with my MBA. I was working in financial services, had taken on some bigger jobs. And the only thing that was missing was love. And I always had this desire to be loved and to receive love. And in January of 2012, I met a girl out in Philadelphia, totally captivated by her. Her name was Jolie, and we met through a mutual friend. And that first night that we had a chance to converse, her guard was a little bit up, but over time I think I charmed her a little bit, and we really kind of liked each other. And so I wanted to see her the following weekend when I was going to be out celebrating my birthday, and she agreed to come out. Got to know each other even better then, and there was just this explosion, this connection. I had such a strong sense for how important family was to her, how important her career was to her, and our dreams and desires really seemed to align. So we decided to date, and we dated pretty aggressively. After about a month and a half, we were already talking about the possibility of getting engaged the following year after she finished school. And about 2.5 months into the relationship, we found out that she was pregnant. So for me, I've had family members that have been single parents or hadn't been married and had had children, and it hasn't been a problem. But Jolie, because of her background and her culture, it was important that she be married prior to having a child. And so we had a decision to make, and I chose to follow my heart with a little bit of dialogue with friends and family, and we decided that we were going to get married. And 6 days later, we got married.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I announced that on April 1st.
Oh, no.
And so many of my friends and family thought it was a big April Fool's joke.
Yeah.
But the reason why it was expedited was because her mother and brother were going to Uzbekistan for a couple of months, and they wanted to announce to family that she was pregnant. So it was important that she was married first.
Nice.
So we got married. Made it through the summer. My daughter was born at the end of November in 2012. best day of my life. And anyone who's been a parent knows those first 90 days can be tumultuous, to say the least.
Lack of sleep.
Yeah.
A
A lot of frustration, just with trying to figure out how to be new parents.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is our differences really came to the surface then. Differences in how we wanted to manage money, differences in how we wanted to manage healthcare for our daughter. And I feel like the relationship just never really recovered after those first 90 days. And fast forward to October of 2013, we agreed that we were going to get a divorce. And I remembered that conversation and just looking into her eyes, and it was the first time in a long time that I could tell that she was at peace.
Wow.
Because there was so much going back and forth. It seemed like every day something new came up that we couldn't really resolve.
Yeah.
And me personally, I had a sense of relief because now I could have redirected my energy towards me and the raising of my daughter and making sure that she had the best care. A few weeks later, we were making arrangements for Jolie to drop off my daughter for visitation, because what would happen is during the week she would stay with her mother and my daughter would stay with them, and she'd bring her over to see me on Saturdays and Sundays. I was visiting my parents down in Delaware, going to get a haircut on a Saturday morning. This was November the 9th. And I tried to text her and call her, and I didn't hear back from her, which was a little bit odd because typically she was pretty timely in terms of returning my calls, in terms of making arrangements with my daughter. About 9:30 in the morning, I received an email. And the email started, "Dear David, I want you to take a seat and take a deep breath before you continue to read this letter." And my heart just sank, because it was just one of those moments where you're like, I know something's terribly wrong. So I thumbed through my phone, I'm reading the email, and the email, she basically explains that she left. She didn't tell me where she went, but that she didn't want to tear our daughter apart through the divorce process, and she didn't want to potentially risk losing custody.
Wow.
After I read that email a few times, my dad happened to be there, and I was trying to explain to him what was going on, but I was just so discombobulated. The same time, my phone rings, and I'm thinking that it's her returning my call, and it's my sister. And my sister is sobbing on the other end of the phone, and she explains to me that our aunt, who was hospitalized for the past couple days because of surgery, was being revived. And at that moment, it was one of those situations where life just completely stops for the moment.
Yeah. Time stops.
Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, this is like something out of a movie. Like, this doesn't happen to me.
No.
It's like I started taking it personally. And so eventually I went to the hospital. I followed my father there. Unfortunately, my aunt did pass away that morning. And as my mom and her sister were communicating out to family and friends, I was still holding all this energy from the email. And I felt like I couldn't tell them because they were all grieving. That following Monday, I ended up hiring an attorney. I got a custody order because the law enforcement wouldn't do anything without a custody order. So at that point, the parent has the right to take the child wherever, as long as they're not in violation of a custody order.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So finally received that on Thursday. So this is 5 days removed from the actual email. That's the day that I found out that she took them to Uzbekistan and left the country. Yeah. Huge emotional release. So many emotions, from resentment to anger, frustration. I felt hopeless. I was embarrassed, because I'd had so many people supporting me with this relationship that was progressing so quickly. I mean, people had their reservations and they shared that with me. But I felt like I let a lot of people down. I really felt like I let myself down, because up to that point, I felt like I'd made some pretty good decisions in my life. And this was totally unexpected, and it felt like a mistake to me. And so after really trying to battle through all these emotions, I found an outlet, and my outlet was writing letters to my daughter. And so she was 11 months at the time of the abduction. And so what I used to do is every day I'd write her a letter that just told her about my day and said, hey, I'm thinking about you. I can't wait to see you. Here's what Daddy's been doing to keep busy. And after about 2 weeks, I ended up having this really amazing dream about her. And my my daughter came to me in this dream, and she was a little bit older, probably between 3 or 4. And she was wearing this white little lacy ruffled dress with white patent leather shoes. It was very, very angelic. And she came and she hopped up on my lap, kissed me on the cheek, and she says, "Everything's going to be okay, Daddy." In that moment, something changed in me, and I didn't understand it at the time, but the next morning, I kept imagining her. I kept feeling her energy.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, did that really happen, or was it a dream, or did I actually experience her because it felt so real? And I recognized that those feelings weren't there anymore. All of a sudden, they were replaced with this reservoir of peace that literally kind of sat in my stomach area. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of comforting. And then that seemed to expand into compassion.
Wow.
And that expanded to forgiveness.
Wow.
So I was feeling these things for myself. Right. So all of a sudden, the things that I was holding in that, I felt like I could have triggered her making this decision. I realized that she still has a choice. Right. And I can't hold myself hostage for a decision that she made. So eventually I was able to let that go. And as I let that go for myself, after about 30 days, I was able to bring my wife into that space of compassion and forgiveness. And all of a sudden, I was no longer a victim, and she was no longer a perpetrator.
Wow.
And there was this sense of empathy and connection as we're all experiencing this pain in very different ways. So that was the beginning. And a few weeks after that, I've been an avid meditator since about 2011. And a few weeks after that, I was in meditation, and I literally saw this piece of paper kind of like floating in front of me. And on it was a list of words. And it had words like compassion and forgiveness and gratitude. And I didn't understand it at the time. But a few weeks after that, I realized that these aspects, these principles were things that I was learning so deeply during this time of separation. I was learning how to be compassionate, how to forgive myself and others, how to be grateful for everything that was unfolding. And that just made this peaceful space just grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And people started to see a change in me in terms of how I was interacting. In fact, a lot of people were very uncomfortable with how I was responding because...
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Coworkers, family, and friends are like, "Are you sure you're okay?"
Wow.
Because this isn't normal for someone to respond this way.
Yeah.
And to not be angry, and I'm angry for you.
Yeah.
And I comforted people to let them know that I was doing okay. I was fine.
Yeah, that you had indeed felt those emotions.
Yeah.
That's the important part. You did. You were angry.
Yeah.
And then were these processes that helped you through it.
That's right.
Navigate through it and get to the other side.
That's right. So eventually, as I was thinking about the separation from my daughter and my process of writing letters, I didn't know when or if I was going to see her again. And so the original letters really came from a deep place of love and a desire to be connected. And I recognized that the greatest gift as her father that I could give her, and I name her Lucia in the book, is to share these principles and how I found peace, because we all deal with the ebb and flow of life. We all deal with difficult circumstances. And if I can help her life be more peaceful, more pleasant, more joyful, more full of love, that would be the greatest gift that I could give her. And that's how the book was birthed.
And here is the book. Show everybody. Letters to Lucia. What a story. So I need to take a breath now. I mean, it's so amazing in so many ways. And to be perfectly honest, when Jeannie sent me your name, and I read a little bit about, an international abduction, like it took my breath away and it made me very uneasy. Right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, how can this relate to raising conscious kids? How can this relate to my audience? And so then I was guided to just kind of like take a step back, and I believe in divine timing, and I know that things happen, can happen for a reason. And so I waited till we got on the phone the other day and you shared that story with me. And I began to weep at the time. And I brought my tissues today just in case. I began to weep at that time because as you were sharing the story, I was holding the vision for you of reunited hearts. A space of, and I shared with you that what I was seeing was just love surrounding the whole situation. And when you got to the point in your profound story that you were able to bring her mom in, then I saw the three of you in a circle holding hands. And it was just so powerful for me. And the reason that I was weeping was because I thought of how many times in my own life when I've been side by side with my husband or side by side with my kids, and I haven't really been that present as you've been able to be with your daughter. And I've had my own transformational journey, and I'm on the other side of that. And not that I'm perfect, I'm not, nobody is. And if they are, run, because they're giving you a load of, brouhaha there. But just to really, like, that's what it means to me, is to share this space of beautiful connection that you've been able to, number one, as a person who's interested and passionate about transformation, like to take what you could have spent your whole life in anger about this. I mean, so easily. And your coworkers would have, patted you on the back, that's why they were so taken aback. Well, like, this isn't normal. Well, it's not normal. It's not normal. You had to, but the beautiful gift that your daughter gave to you, and I believe that was a visitation of some sort on a spirit level. We're all connected. There's so much science now that says, the connection, and, the butterfly that flaps its wings in the North Pole affects, things in the South Pole. Like there's, and I'm not a scientist, so I don't speak about that a lot, but my husband is, so I have him researching it. Like, I want to be able to speak on this clearly. I don't like this, pseudo-science stuff. But anyway, like, I feel like that was indeed a visitation, and that healed your heart. And what a beautiful experience. So why I was weeping, and the space that I'm now holding, is because I see it, in my trainings, I see it in my coaching, that we long for that experience. I mean, as a mom, of course, I carried my children for 9 months. Of course, I want that closeness, that love, that experience. And, as life goes on, there's a vision like of a painting. And I heard someone speaking once that, we're all born and we're this beautiful painting and we're all shiny and new. And then just life is just like throwing stuff at that painting. Like, you go to school and you get picked on by the kids, and, your parents say something that's so not from their, highest perspective, but from their wounds, from their upbringing. And so I just see this as a beautiful story of the connection that you've been able to, maintain. So first of all, begin and then maintain with your daughter. So tell us about the book. Here it is again, Letters to Lucia by David Brown Jr. Tell us about the book.
So each chapter represents a principle. And so I start every chapter with a letter to my daughter that explains the principle and explains how it may show up for her. Right? That's where the learning is for her. And then the second part of every chapter is the narrative. So the book goes chronologically. When you look at the narrative, it tells the whole story from the time that I met Jolie through and beyond the abduction. And then every chapter ends in a reflection. So it's me kind of looking back on the experience and saying, well, here's what happened, here's how I hold it now, and here's how I would potentially do things differently, right, as I perceive it today. Right. And then I've tied some coaching aspects to it as well, where each chapter ends with a series of reflection questions for the reader. So what's been very interesting, and this concept really started with this connection between my daughter and I. Once I wrote the manuscript, the publisher, helped me design the cover. I realized that the energy of the cover was very different than what I originally anticipated. And then as people began to read the book, I started to notice these transformations. I mean, people were coming back to me. They're like, this book is changing my life.
Oh.
And I'm like, what? Like,
Wow.
what greater gift can you get from someone else than to hear something like that?
For sure.
And what I realize is that as people are reading it, because they're connected to the story, they're already in this heart space.
Yeah.
Right. They're already in this space of compassion and trying to relate and understand. And my emotions are all there. So anything I've ever felt or thought about this situation, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they move to the reflection questions, and now all of a sudden they're putting themselves in that space. And I realized, like, I didn't design it that way. It just kind of happened to evolve that way. But I realized that's where people are having these moments, and they're saying, wow, a principle like forgiveness, who can I forgive? And how does that feel right now? And how can I get relief? Right?
Wow.
So yeah, people are getting into these spaces of deep reflection with all the principles, and thankfully they're not judging themselves, right? So they're thinking about situations that they may have had, but the way the way the book is written and the energy of it, it's written in a very intentional way so that readers are not judging themselves to say, oh, well, I'm not like David. I did it this way. It's really very gentle in terms of how it's structured.
And I'll add, as a coach, if judgment does come up, what would you say to people?
Well, it depends. Well, why?
Yeah.
Why is it coming up? Or in the circumstances too, depending on the circumstances, we judge ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
And even
it's a habit.
Yeah.
It's a habit that's kind of like, it's not only passed down, but I mean, just look at the media, look at this standard that, like, even before the internet was so pervasive, we'd have models on magazines that were photoshopped.
Yeah.
We didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
We were like, now everybody can Photoshop their pictures.
Yeah.
So I think judgment is just so pervasive. And so what I would say is, just be with the judgment. It's okay. Don't judge the judgment.
Don't judge the judgment.
Don't judge the judgment. If it comes up, that's okay. It's just an emotion.
Yeah, but the problem is getting past that.
Yeah.
Right? Because we are taught, we do learn very early on how to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's important, it's interesting that forgiveness and forgiveness and judgment can go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
And so just wherever people are at, the first step is make peace with it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you can go on from there and get tools. And I've been working with a coach for a long time, and I've grown so much personally by working with a coach, and to get that judgment out and to get that monkey mind, to silence that monkey mind that isn't usually kind.
Yeah.
When it's not the kind words, it's not coming from a higher loving perspective.
Yeah.
It's the judgment.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So are any of the letters included in here, or it's really been, because you just gave me the book today, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, so
chapter
every
4.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, here, I see. Oh, nice. So it does. Go ahead.
What's that?
I said, does it include the letters?
Yeah. So every chapter begins with the letter to my daughter, and if you read the dedication, I commit to my daughter that every week I will write her a letter, and I seal them, so they're just for her. So I have a box of letters that go beyond this that I use to stay connected.
Can I? So I just opened it intentionally. Can I share this?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm in Letters for Lucia, chapter 4, the acceptance principle. Cool. When being overly critical of yourself, or when your self-image is distorted, this is exactly what I was just saying. Oh, I love that. It becomes difficult to express compassion or acceptance towards others. Can I read just a couple of
Absolutely.
lines?
Absolutely.
Dear Lucia, this is so beautiful. You are going to be enjoying. You read it.
Dear Lucia, you are going to be enjoying so many wonders and beautiful experiences as your life unfolds. Along the way, things may happen that neither you nor I would be able to make sense of or understand. There are aspects of life that many of us try to control, so it is wise to recognize that we only have control over ourselves and our responses to our immediate environments. Mm-hmm. When someone is impacted by the actions of another, they may even feel an urgency to reach out and take charge of what is happening. In those types of situations, our sense of self or self-image may push forward trying to label things right or wrong, good or bad. Our self-image is often referred to as the ego. Since we experience consciousness through our egos, it is incredibly important and beneficial to create a kind and accepting relationship with your own ego. If you are overly critical of yourself or your self-image is distorted, it could become difficult to express compassion or acceptance towards others. We are all part of a larger universal order that is constantly unfolding, and it is my hope that as you grow, you will want to learn to be non-judgmental of people and things that may not be immediately understandable. To come to a place of acceptance does not mean giving up or giving in. Instead, it means to become more allowing. As things and events unfold around you, it is easier to develop this feeling of allowing when you reduce emotional attachments to outcomes. The fewer judgments you place on others, the more you will grow in compassion and trust for the unfolding universal order. Gradually, you will realize that others are doing the best that they can, moment by moment. By holding a sacred space for compassion and making acceptance a daily practice, you will support and expand your own inner peace. Attachments to what is happening or to controlling outcomes will gradually become unimportant, and you will feel radiant living your life. I love you, Daddy.
Oh, so beautiful. Oh, thank you for reading that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So beautiful. I'm just kind of basking in that beautiful energy. So I would just like everyone, our Raising Conscious Kids community is amazing. And I would just like to invite everyone now to just join me in holding the space and just surrounding David and Lucia and Jolie with love now and forever, and that the highest expression of their love be present now. And we have so many amazing people in our community. I just want to thank you for adding your amazing energy for that. And now back to our chat.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So now you have, it's so interesting because when I was reading your bio, I was like, okay, Reiki master. Okay, I don't publicize that. So Jeannie didn't even know that about me. I have my Reiki master certification. And when you shared, okay, you have your MBA, I thought, no, it can't be from Villanova. Yes, it's from Villanova. It's so funny, just things line up for us as we say yes. And you've had so many cool things happen with the publishing of this book and all. So I would love, I know, because I get feedback from a lot of our community that people have stories to tell and they have books in them and they're at various stages of this. And I feel like once you said yes, the universe kind of lined everything up and like the wind is now at your back. So I would just love for you to share how that happened, because I think that would be helpful for folks.
Yeah. So, I found myself in this state of allowing. Mm-hmm. So to your point, once I recognized, okay, I want to turn this into something and I want to share it, the right people just came into my life. There's a former coworker of mine who had a friend who was a coach for her. Mm-hmm. And she mentioned to me, hey, this person is a book coach as well. So she does developmental editing and she's down in South Carolina. And she introduced me to Joan Eisen. And our first conversation was just absolutely incredible. And I just knew that we had this energetic connection. Mm-hmm. And so we agreed on a process for me sending her drafts and her not only editing the copy, but then also taking a step back and helping me think through book structure.
I love the structure of this book.
That. Yeah. So this was totally collaborative.
Yeah, it's awesome.
With Joan. And so
really good.
Excuse me. Over the course of about 12 months, we worked together. So what's interesting is, the process of trying to get a book published is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Because the publishing industry is kind of like blocked a lot of people out because of the financial returns. They're not as big as what they were. So you have a lot of people that are self-publishing now. And so Joan happened to be at it was the book festival in South Carolina, and she ran into a woman named Sherry Stout, who runs a website called Writers Win.
Oh, Writers Win.
And
good website name, huh?
Yeah, Sherry is absolutely fantastic. She's a marketer, and she teaches social media and marketing for authors, and her website has a plethora of tools. And so when Joan referred me to the website, I looked at it and said, hey, do you think you could connect me with Sherry? Because I would love to understand what tool should I invest in,
sure,
with
that's
limited
smart.
funds. And Sherry and I spoke. I told her my story. I sent her the manuscript. She fell in love with it. And she ended up connecting me with the CEO of a small publishing firm called Kohler Books. Is John Kohler. And so at the time, Joan...
Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
yes, I see it. Nice.
Yeah. And at the time, Joan and I were restructuring the entire manuscript because I paid an outside consulting reader to read the whole thing and then provide objective feedback. So we decided to restructure the entire manuscript.
Again.
Wow.
But I think that's so smart, because you weren't attached.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think this is so key for people, and in every point of life, especially parenting, but in anything. So you had this broad vision, and one of the things that we talked about is letting go of the how.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you let go of the how, but say you had been like, no, I just want to do these letters, and it's great the way it is, but you were just in a place of allowing.
That's right.
So I love that.
That's right. I mean, I set an intention early, and what I focused on was the outcome that I wanted to create. I knew that I wanted to touch people in a very meaningful way, and the rest I just kind of follow my heart with the rest of it. So it's all about the feeling of it. And so after the manuscript was restructured, I sent it to John's team, and within 3 weeks they offered me a publishing deal.
Wow.
Yeah, so it literally, it turned around so quickly.
Wow.
And
I'm just taking notes. I love my ahas in these interviews. So
yeah,
I'm not making a grocery list.
That's all good.
These are tweetable moments here.
And
follow my heart.
And it was interesting because in talking to John, we had a great creative discussion about the cover, and he said, well, what do you want? And Joan had actually suggested that I go out to the bookstore, and I would go out and I would take pictures of different covers that I liked. And so at the time when I was self-publishing or intending to self-publish, I had a vision of what I thought the cover would look like. And then when I talked to John, I said, here's what I'm thinking. It's something about this awakening, this lotus flower that's really calling me. And I said, I'll leave that to your team. And they came back with 6 different covers. I narrowed it down to 2, and then we voted on it. And this cover was hands down the favorite.
So let me ask you, I just had an aha here. Are these petals of the lotus flower your letters?
That's right.
I have goosebumps on my whole body.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's powerful. Wow. The symbolism in that is extremely powerful.
Because I looked at it online, but I didn't get that online. And now holding it,
yeah,
it's like, whoa. Wow. And so the rest, so you got the deal in 3 weeks.
Got the deal in 3 weeks.
Okay.
There were very few edits required for the manuscript, which was amazing. Because,
yeah, that is amazing.
Because I was on a few different Facebook forums, and some of the authors were complaining about the number of edits and iterations they've had to go through with their publishers. We took out about a dozen or 2 dozen commas, and that was about it. That was about it.
I did not expect that. That was almost a spit take. You almost got my Moroccan mint green tea there. I did not expect. We removed a couple commas.
Yeah, so Joan, and Joan was such a big part of this whole creative process and such a connector. But it's just interesting because I think about all the people that I've met along this journey. It starts with one relationship, and all of a sudden you're connected to this other person. Yeah. But I recognize that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't in a state of allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
You know.
So cool. Yeah. Now, how'd you meet Jeannie? Because that's how we met.
So Jeannie, interesting enough, a really close spiritual friend of mine, I'd reached out to her one morning because I woke up and I found myself thinking about the marketing of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I have more to offer than just the book. The
Yeah.
book is kind of the first step in,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there are things I want to do with workshops and speaking engagements and things like that. And so I didn't feel like I had a really great strategy. And so I didn't want to just be online tweeting and posting things on Facebook to try to get people to buy a book.
Right.
I felt like there were bigger connections that I needed to make within radio and television.
Mm-hmm.
And so I reached out to my friend and said, hey, I'm thinking about getting a PR person. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And she literally texted me Jeannie's name.
Oh, it was that
And
friend
telephone
that's
number.
close with Jeannie.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
no.
Oh.
She happened to be at a place, at a studio where she was getting headshots.
Oh.
And she happened to just throw out there, hey, does anyone know a PR person?
Oh.
And Jeannie's connected with the woman who does
I know of
headshots.
her. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
6 degrees of separation or 2.
yeah, and literally she texted me back within a matter of 2 minutes. I mean, so
Wow.
again, it's about divine timing.
Yes.
And so I called
awesome.
Jeannie. We had a conversation. First conversation was pretty good, and then the second conversation I felt really, really connected
Yeah.
to her.
She's awesome.
Yeah, and we've been working together for a couple months now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So as you were talking, as we're both fellow Villanova alum, and you're teaching there already, because I joked with you, I texted you earlier today. These are something I was doing with social media, and I said, they didn't teach us this at Villanova. Wouldn't that be an awesome class as your story? And wouldn't that be an awesome class for Villanova grads, even like alum like me? Like many of us are in different careers. My BS is in information technology. And I did that for 13 years and I loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
Then I had a daughter and my whole world changed.
Yeah.
And so then I went into the corporate training and really this personal development and the personal growth and all that, coaching, and now raising conscious kids and all that. So I think there are a lot of even just alum, let alone the kids, who would be interested in writing a book. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and a lot of people have come to me after understanding my process.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned Villanova because one of the professors that I work with, Dr. Ronald Hill, he's a marketing expert. Villanova is actually putting this book as required reading.
Get out of here.
Yeah, and
oh my goodness.
Yeah, and they have an undergrad social enterprise course that's
Oh
kicking
my
off in
goodness.
fall.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Do you know Dr. Bonner?
I do.
Yeah, I'm friends with him.
Is it Greg?
Greg Bonner.
Greg Bonner,
Yeah.
yeah. He's one of the
Hi,
deans,
Greg.
right?
Yeah, he's now the dean. He's a big deal. Yeah, he was my teacher, and then I actually went to his wedding.
Oh,
We're
wow.
pretty good friends.
Wow.
Yeah. So what's the name of the course again? I want to write it down.
So it's social enterprise. I think it's social enterprise management.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and I can get you the official name of it. But
Yeah.
so basically, the undergrads will work with social enterprise clients on a consulting engagement. So similar to what I'm doing in the MBA now, but bring
Mhm.
it down to the undergrad level. And specifically, these principles, because they're so universal.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the areas that I'm focusing on is taking them into business, because
For sure.
when I think about some of the challenges with leading, right, we tend to separate our professional life from our personal life, but it's really all one and the same. And if we want
Sure.
to really be authentic, we have to embrace all sides of that.
Yeah.
And so these principles become applicable to how leaders maintain their character and really show up authentic,
Mhm.
in their experience. So the idea is to help make that connection for students as they're preparing to graduate.
That's amazing. And I think, one of the things that drew me, my husband and I, it's funny where you get your ideas, right? So a lot of mine are, okay, this may be too TMI, but a lot of mine, like Liz Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, her ahas have been on the bathroom floor.
Yeah.
My husband's are in the shower, and mine are in the tub. So I'm in good company with Liz, who's adorable. Liz lives local. She's local here.
Does she?
Yeah, she's awesome. I
Wow.
see her, every now and then. She's awesome. And one of the things about raising conscious kids is my my belief is our kids are coming in and just pulling, like demanding, or inviting more from us because they're at a different level.
Yeah.
You know, they're just like, even though I wasn't so much into this kind of stuff when my daughter was born, my sense was that for all the work that I had started to do on myself personally, she was like there and
Already there.
the next step.
Yeah.
Like I was like, wow, like how did this, you know, because I was clueless as a kid and we weren't taught this. I mean, in grade school or high school or even in college, like, do you have any courses on, you know, parenting or how to be happy or how, you know, there are a few classes now, especially on, you know, choosing a career that lights you up or something. And maybe only because I worked in the career planning and placement office and our director was amazing. So I kind of saw more of that side because she was always inviting people into,
Sure.
you know, the different tests that you could take, the Myers-Briggs, the aptitude kind of test. We had, oh my goodness, we had the first test, it was called SIGGI, and it ran on a TRS-80, Radio Shack, TRS-80. Do you even know what that is?
I don't. I don't.
I'm not that much older than you. I'm not that much older than you. So it ran on a real, do you remember, Richard, the TRS-80? our engineer, Richard, here. So what did you do on a TRS-80, Richard? I just have to ask real quick. Oh, your mic isn't on.
We used them for. No, I'm there. Yeah, we used them for actually stringers at Newsweek,
Oh, okay.
and they used to write their stories, and then because if I'm not mistaken, there was no saving on those.
You had, remember those big giant discs?
Yeah,
Those
but
floppy
you
discs?
didn't save like you can to a computer
Right.
today.
No, you couldn't.
Yeah.
There was no saving.
But they would write and then send it. I had one I would take home. I was writing a lot, so I would take home and just do it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So back then, and we had a program called SIGGI, S-I-G-I, I don't know what it was. And just because Joan, my friend Joan, she's now a lifelong friend of mine, but my boss at the time was the head of career planning and placement. And so we had now they're kids, the college kids come in and take this aptitude test. And that was like really cutting edge, you know, in the 80s. Like, so what I'm saying is, in a roundabout way, like as our generation, we're not taught to, you know, look for happiness. You know, Joseph Campbell was saying follow your bliss, but who was, you know, not many of us heard that at the time. Or
Right.
if we did hear it, we're like I remember the first time I heard that, I was so disconnected, it didn't even land. Like, it just went right by me. Like, it sounds like a good theory, follow your bliss, but what does that mean? But now I get it. But it's taken me years. And our kids are coming in and like, just, you know, just inviting us to be further as expressions of ourselves, be more authentic, like you said. And I think with social media and, you know, a phone that could take a picture of somebody doing something that they shouldn't be doing, or,
Yeah.
you know, having dinner with somebody that they shouldn't be having dinner with, although they're on a platform saying, I'm so faithful, you know.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think it's really calling us all to be more authentic. So I could totally see why your book is, you know, just another expression of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that younger people are really teaching us is to really evaluate our definition of success and
Yes.
purpose,
Yes.
right? Because, you know, even when I started my career, I remember being in customer service at the bank and thinking, I want to have one of these corner offices one day.
Oh yeah, me too. That
And-
was my only goal.
Yeah.
The office with the window.
Yeah. And when I finally got there, I was completely dissatisfied.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's happy with that.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
like have this carrot that we're chasing, and then we're like, and so that's when people go into therapy, or
Yeah.
you know, have a midlife crisis, or get a coach,
Yeah.
like you know.
Yeah. So I
some of
think,
us.
I mean, it makes sense to me now why all these things are beginning to bubble up
Yes.
as more people begin to wake up and become aware.
Yeah.
And I think our children are the cutting edge of that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in corporate America, we talk a lot about the millennials, and I call them disruptors because to me, they bring a different energy and they want to do social good. They want to bring people together, which quite frankly is diametrically opposed to how some organizations operate.
Short-term profits.
Yeah.
Yeah, just crazy greed. And not everybody, but
Yeah,
just
that's right.
in general, this is the wave that's been common.
Yeah. So hopefully in the next few years we begin to see a concerted effort to begin to redesign some of these systems. And I think it's I don't know if it'll be easy, but I see that being where we go.
Well, let's call it easy.
Yeah.
If we're going to call it anything, let's call it easy.
Yeah.
I mean, look how your book came to be. Was that pretty easy?
It was.
Yeah, so there you go.
It was.
So let's just call in the easy. Because I'm in a training now, and I was listening to one of the video classes. The internet's so amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
This is all within our lifetime.
Yeah.
So I'm now taking a class, and I don't know where he is, but the video, today, I don't know where he is. He's usually in California, but he did a video, and I'm watching the video, and the idea is, what really hit my heart today was, it's one person at a time. It's one family at a time. One of my guests recently had a lifelong battle with depression, and a mom, and she wrote a book, and she was just sharing so openly, and I thought, you don't know who you're impacting, and just by her, having like divine intervention along the way, like she was in Australia on an organic farm with her husband. She lives in Canada.
Okay.
She's in Australia on an organic farm, thinking, maybe this, like, she wasn't diagnosed per se, but what this farmer happened to be a social worker. Like, what are the odds of that?
Yeah.
That's divine timing.
Yeah.
And so he was able, and this was, 20 years ago or something, he was able to like give her the life questions and the life insights that she brought up recently on an interview.
Wow.
So it's just so profound. And so, my current teacher, Ted, one of his thing is like message to millions, and that it's a good goal to have. And he kind of laughed and he said, but really, now that I've been doing it, it's one person. It's you. And so that I just was guided to share that, because when we're thinking of, not changing the world is too big of a thing, but like Gandhi said, be the change you want to be. And, and then it's one person, one family, one conversation at a time.
It's interesting because that particular quote, I began to perceive it so differently after I wrote the book. To your point about it being easy, right? We have a habit of doing.
Yes.
And I realized what was happening is I was being different, right? And
for sure.
So everything around me was still the same.
Yes.
But because I chose to be different, I began to experience it differently.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, wow, your perspective totally shapes whether you experience something good or bad, right? And how you determine it.
For sure.
Yeah.
So powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So powerful. So powerful. How are we doing on time? Oh, good. We have a couple minutes left. So will you share with folks, so we talked about the next step in spreading your message. And so we want to tell folks, how can they get in touch with you and your work, give your website, whatever you want to give out at this point.
Sure, absolutely. So the book is available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. So all of the major outlets, the book is there already. To get in contact with me directly, my website is davidbrownjr.com. That's JUNIOR. I always have to be clear on that because most people try JR and nothing comes up. And I invite people to peruse the website. There's information on the book. There's information on my coaching practice. Fairly soon I'll have information regarding workshops. And I think that's really the next step to bringing people into this space, because I realize, my goal is for people to understand that they have choice.
Yes.
But sometimes our experiences are so heavy that we never get to that point of recognizing that I can choose to do the A or I can choose to do B.
Yeah.
And so my goal is to create an inner experience for people and take them through this exercise for about 7.5 hours and create that inner experience for them to realize that they have choice. So as it continues to develop, I will keep people informed with that.
Great. So you have an email list that folks can connect with you there.
Yeah, and if you go to the website and you sign up for my email subscription, I will send you a free gift.
We love gifts. We're always asking for gifts on Raising Conscious Kids Radio. We're unabashed about asking for gifts because you guys are awesome and you deserve it. So that's awesome. Okay, so we just have a couple minutes left. What are the last kind of final things that you'd like to share, David?
You know, there's something very powerful about being who you are, where you are in the moment. And, you know, I've had this thing about, I had this understanding of what I thought faith was. And I think this experience has made me think about that a little bit differently.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and I think about faith in two ways. So the most common way, the way I used to think about it, was trust. But the second is related to willingness. And I realized that when you begin to open your heart and become willing to experience life for what it is, which is really a series of lessons, you begin to show up different. The experience becomes different. For me, there was a point in time where I became the observer and the observed at the same time.
Like Eckhart Tolle talks about, and the power of now. Yeah.
And I realized that being in that space and being able to disconnect from my emotions, it's like watching a movie.
Yeah.
And every circumstance becomes an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
And I realized that when you embrace that viewpoint, two things happen. One, you don't repeat the lessons. Right?
Amen to that one.
Right. So
For sure.
Yeah. So as you heal them, you don't repeat the
you
lessons.
learn them.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
learn
the
them.
second thing is that even the most difficult of circumstances become a lot more bearable.
Yeah.
You know, because the emotional shift tends not to be as wide when you can view life that way. So I encourage people to be present, think about being more willing to experience, and be open to all these other possibilities that are out there.
Well, David, I can't imagine a more horrific experience than what you've lived in your life. And I just want to acknowledge, I'm getting choked up. Okay, now I'm going to go to the place where I'm seeing you all in that circle again. Okay, I'm back. I just want to acknowledge you for taking a stand and going through the process, going through the hell, and really coming through to the other side, which to me is the transformation. And being willing, you know, you got a nice ride out there. You don't need to be doing this. Like, you know, you got a nice ride. You had a cushy job. You know, this, you know, you probably didn't think this was in your plans when you were 18 years old, 21 years old. And I just want to acknowledge you for, number one, the profound transformation that you've done on yourself. And we heal the planet, mankind, one person at a time.
That's right.
And one family at a time. And so I just want to acknowledge you for that. And just to invite folks, I mean, what amazing energy. So just to invite folks to just come into your space. And it's been such a blessing for me, you know, the amount of time that I've known you. And so join your newsletter, join your community. If you're not a part of Raising Conscious Kids, raisingconsciouskids.com, join our community, and just take this as a lesson. My final thing would be, you know, no matter what you're going through in your life, you can choose to react and be on a lower level, or you can choose, it's not easy, I'm not saying it's easy, or you can choose to one step. Sometimes it's 10 minutes at a time. Sometimes it's 5 seconds at a time. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
To just keep going, keep moving forward, get the support you need. You know, your community, our community, get the support you need, because no matter what you're going through, you can get to the other side. And it's just an amazing lesson. And thank you so much for this time today.
Thank you.
with us, David Brown Jr. Letters for Lucia. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Okay, mics are off.